Okay, so let's start with the basics. What asterisk is? Asterisk information security. It's not just about firewalls and passwords, although those are important. Really, it's all about protecting our data. We're talking about keeping things private, making sure information is accurate and hasn't been messed with, and always ensuring we can actually access what we need when we need it. Think of it like layers of protection, understanding the potential threats, identifying where weaknesses might exist, and then assessing how likely something bad could happen and what impact it would have. Okay, let's talk about what a security engineer actually does. Basically, they're the digital guardians. Their job is to find problems before they happen. Think like a detective, constantly scanning for weaknesses in systems and networks. They don't just react to breaches, they actively monitor everything for anything unusual. When something does go wrong, they're on it, leading the investigation and figuring out how to fix it. And it's not just about fixing things asterisk after asterisk they break, they also help design secure systems from the very beginning, ensuring that security is a core part of every decision. They also train employees to spot dangers too, a really important job. Okay, let's talk about how security engineers think about protecting information. It all starts with the CIA triad. Basically, we're aiming for three key things: keeping sensitive data secret, making sure that information is accurate and hasn't been tampered with, and always ensuring systems are available when you need them. They all work together. If one part fails, it can impact the others, so it's important to consider them holistically. Okay, let's talk about security governance and risk management. It's a really crucial part of being a security engineer. Think of it as setting the stage for your security efforts. It's not just about finding holes, it's about understanding why those holes are there and making smart decisions about how to address them. We establish policies, like rules about passwords or data handling. Then we assess risks, figuring out what could go wrong and how likely that is. Compliance ensures we're following all the laws and industry standards that apply to our business. And finally, training employees is key because people are often the weakest link in a security chain. Okay, let's talk about some of the most common threats security engineers need to be aware of. First up is malware, basically any software designed to cause harm to your system. Then there's phishing, which relies on tricking you into giving away information. Ransomware encrypts your files and demands payment for their release, while a DDoS attack overwhelms a server with traffic until it can't handle legitimate requests. Understanding these threats is the first step in protecting systems. Okay, let's talk about how we identify and tackle vulnerabilities. Vulnerability management is all about spotting weaknesses in our system. Think of it like a detective hunt. We use tools to scan for potential problems, then carefully analyze them to understand just how risky they are. It's not enough to just know there's a vulnerability. We need to figure out how likely someone could exploit it and what the impact would be on our business. Then, we prioritize those risks, focusing on the most important ones first. Finally, we fix them, whether it's patching software or adjusting security settings, and make sure those fixes actually work by retesting. Okay, let's talk about threat modeling. It's all about figuring out what could go wrong with your systems before it does. There are several frameworks we use to do this effectively. First up is STRIDE: sensitivity, technique, reliability, induce, decrease, and exploit. It helps us look at vulnerabilities by considering how they might be exploited. Then there's DREAD: damage potential, reproducibility, exploitation difficulty, affected users, and discoverability. DREAD lets us rank risks based on their impact and how easy they are to pull off. Finally, we have POSTA: potential attack vector, affected assets, sensitivity, threat score, and action plan. It's a more structured approach that gives us specific steps we can take to manage those threats. Okay, let's talk about how security teams tackle a breach. It's not just reacting, it's following a really important process called the security incident response lifecycle. Think of it like a roadmap for handling any kind of security issue. First, you need to be prepared. That means having clear policies and procedures in place, knowing who's responsible for what, and making sure you have the tools you need. Then, You need to identify that something's happening. This could come from monitoring systems, alerts popping up, or even a report from someone noticing something strange. Once you know there's an incident, it's time for containment, which is all about stopping the damage in its tracks, maybe by isolating affected computers. After containment, you move to eradication, getting rid of what caused the problem. Next comes recovery, where you bring everything back online and make sure it's working correctly. Finally, it's crucial to learn from each incident. That's the lessons learned phase, where you analyze what's happened and improve your defenses for the future. Okay, let's talk about the Security Operations Center, SOC. Think of it as the security team's control room. It's a 24/7 operation dedicated to keeping an eye out for threats. The SOC is divided into 3 tiers. Tier 1 focuses on catching potential problems early through tools like SIEM systems and endpoint detection software. If something looks suspicious, they flag it. Then Tier 2 analysts dive deeper. They investigate those alerts, figure out what's actually happening, and try to understand the scope of the issue. Finally, Tier 3 is the response team. They take action to contain breaches, clean up any infections, and restore systems back to normal. Crucially, a good SOC also does things like proactively hunt for threats beyond automated alerts, keeps track of vulnerabilities, and analyzes logs from all over the network to spot anything unusual. Okay, let's talk about intrusion detection and prevention systems, or IDSIPs. Think of them as your network's vigilant security guard. They are essentially a combined system. They do both detection and prevention. They constantly watch the traffic flowing through your network, looking for anything suspicious, whether it's something they recognize with a specific signature or if they spot unusual behavior that might signal an attack. It's built around sensors that examine packets, a database of known threats, and an engine that can actually block or quarantine any detected danger. Okay, let's talk about endpoint detection and response, or EDR. It's a really important part of modern cybersecurity. Think of it as a much more intelligent way to protect your computers. Unlike basic antivirus, which just looks for known viruses, EDR constantly watches what's happening on each device, everything from the apps you run to the files you touch. It then uses clever analysis to spot anything that seems out of place or potentially dangerous. And importantly, it can automatically take action to stop threats before they cause serious harm. Okay, let's talk about firewalls. They are absolutely essential for network security. Think of them like a bouncer at the entrance to your digital building. They examine every packet of data coming in and going out, making sure only authorized traffic gets through. There are different types, from simple packet filters that just look at headers to more sophisticated stateful firewalls that remember connections. And then we have next-generation firewalls, which add even more layers of protection, like identifying specific applications. Okay, let's talk about how we build layers of security. First up, we have packet filtering. It's a really basic but quick way to block traffic based on simple rules like IP addresses and ports. Then, stateful inspection takes things a step further by remembering the context of network connections, preventing unsolicited incoming traffic. Finally, application firewalls dive deep, examining the actual data within packets to identify and stop advanced threats. It's like building a security system with multiple checkpoints, each looking for something different. Okay, let's talk about network security. Specifically, we're diving into network segmentation and micro-segmentation. Think of it like organizing a building with network segmentation. You create distinct zones for different departments or functions, each with its own set of controls. This helps shrink the overall attack surface and makes it much harder for an attacker to move around if they do get in. Now, micro-segmentation is even more detailed. It's like adding locks to every single door within those zones. It's all about creating really tight security policies between individual servers or virtual machines. We use things like SDN and carefully crafted firewall rules alongside principles from Zero Trust to achieve this level of granular control. It's a key skill for any security engineer. Okay, let's talk about Zero Trust. Traditionally, we've relied on a castle and moat approach to security, strong walls around the network, assuming that anyone inside is safe. But that's changing. Zero Trust flips this thinking completely. It says never trust, always verify. Basically, every single user and device needs to prove who they are every time they try to access something, no matter where they are connecting from. It focuses on a few key principles. First, we assume a breach has already happened. It's better to be prepared than caught off guard. Second, everyone gets the absolute minimum level of access they need for their job least privilege. And finally, we continuously check and recheck everything, making sure users and devices are still trustworthy. Okay, let's dive into Identity and Access Management, or IAM. Think of it as the rules of the game for who can do what in your organization's systems. Basically, IAM is all about managing identities, that's you, and then making sure each person only has access to what they absolutely need. Authorization. We use authentication to verify who someone claims to be, and authorization dictates what they can actually do. It's built around key components like central directories for managing everyone's accounts, ISIA which control permissions at the resource level, and of course, MFA adding extra layers of security beyond just a password. Okay, let's talk about multi-factor authentication, or MFA. It's a really important step in keeping your online accounts secure. Basically, it means adding an extra layer of protection beyond just your password. It's like having multiple locks on your door. If one fails, you still have others to stop someone from getting in. We look at how it works, the different types of factors we can use, and why implementing MFA everywhere is a really smart move for protecting yourself online. Okay, let's talk about how we control who gets to do what. First up is our backroll-based access control. It's like assigning people to different job roles, and those roles get access to specific resources. Think of it as accountant can see financial reports, and developer can work with code. It's a straightforward way to manage permissions at scale. Now let's move on to back attribute-based access control. This is more advanced. Instead of just roles, a back looks at attributes things like where the user is, what time it is, or even the type of device they're using to decide if access should be granted. It allows for a much more dynamic and nuanced approach to security, ensuring that access is always based on the specific context. Okay, let's talk about PKI. It stands for Public Key Infrastructure, and it's a really important part of how we do security online. Basically, PKI is like the system that makes sure you can trust who you're talking to on the internet. At its core, it relies on something called public key cryptography, which uses matching pairs of keys, a public key for sharing and a private key that stays secret. A certificate to authority acts as a trusted third party, issuing these digital certificates. These certificates are like electronic passports. They prove your identity to websites and services, making things like online shopping and secure email possible. Okay, let's talk about how we keep data safe online, specifically with SSL/TLS. These protocols are like secret handshakes between your browser and a website, ensuring everything you send and receive is encrypted. We've moved past older versions like SSL v3, which had some major security issues. Right now, TLS 1.2 and especially TLS 1.3 are the standards. They are significantly more secure. Certificates are digital ID for websites and servers. Think of them as passports. Public Key Infrastructure, or PKI, is the whole system that manages these certificates. And certificate authorities, or CAUs, are like trusted passport offices that issue those ID. There are lots of little details around certificates, to things like how they're used and who can access them. It's really important to keep an eye on certificate expiration dates and make sure your trust chains are solid. Okay, let's dive into the basics of cryptography. It's a really important part of security. Essentially, it's all about protecting information using different methods. We have three main types: symmetric encryption, which uses the same key for both locking and unlocking something; asymmetric encryption, also known as public key cryptography, where you have a pair of keys, one to encrypt and one to decrypt; and hashing, which creates a unique fingerprint of data that can be used to verify if it's been tampered with. Think of symmetric encryption like using the same key for all your locks, while asymmetric is like sending a padlock with instructions on how to open it. And hashing? That's like taking a photo of something you can't recreate the original from just the picture. Okay, let's talk about how we actually protect data with encryption. We use algorithms, which are like recipes for transforming information into an unreadable format. Today, we're focusing on three main ones: AES, RSA, and EC. AES is a really fast and secure way to encrypt and decrypt data using the same key. Think of it like a super efficient lock and key system. Then there's RSA, which uses a pair of keys, a public one for encryption and a private one for decryption, perfect for things like securing online transactions. And finally, ECC is another asymmetric algorithm that's particularly good for devices with limited resources because it can achieve strong security with shorter keys. Okay, let's talk about digital signatures and certificates. They're super important for keeping things safe online. Basically, a digital signature is like a really strong, unforgeable autograph that proves something truly came from the person who created it and hasn't been messed with since. A certificate, often seen as SSL or TLS, is like an ID card for websites. It confirms that you're actually connecting to the legitimate site and not some fake copycat trying to trick you. They work by using cryptography, complex math to guarantee authenticity and integrity. It's a process involving private and public keys, a trusted certificate authority, and a whole lot of clever verification. Okay, let's talk about keeping your digital secrets safe, specifically how to manage those all-important cryptographic keys. Think of key management as the foundation of any good security system. We're going to cover some core principles like giving keys only what they absolutely need and building in multiple layers of protection. Then we'll dive into some specific best practices, including using hardware modules for added physical security, employing secure vaults to centralize everything, establishing regular rotation schedules, and always adding MFA. Okay, let's talk about securing your web apps. The OWASP Top 10 is like a roadmap for security. It lists the most common and dangerous threats to web applications. It's not a checklist you just tick off, but a way of thinking about where vulnerabilities are likely to exist. We've got things like injection attacks, where bad actors sneak malicious code in through user input, broken authentication, which is all about weak passwords and access control, and then there's sensitive data exposure, basically making sure your customer info stays safe. It's a really important resource for any security engineer. Okay, let's talk about how security engineers protect applications. We'll start with SAST and DAST. They're a really important part of the process. SAST is like having a super smart code reviewer that automatically checks your source code for potential problems like injection attacks or XSS vulnerabilities before you even build anything. It's great at finding issues early on, but it can't spot problems that only show up when the application is actually running. Now, DAST takes things to the next level. It's like simulating an attacker trying to break into your app. You run a tool and send in malicious inputs, and the tool tells you if anything looks suspicious or vulnerable, basically finding issues during runtime. Both SAST and DAST are crucial for building secure applications, and they often work together as part of a broader security strategy. Okay, let's talk about software composition analysis, or SCA. It's a really important part of how security engineers keep applications safe. Think of it as taking inventory of everything your software uses that wasn't written by you, all those open source libraries and components. SCA tools scan your code to find these, and then they check for known vulnerabilities in those parts. It also helps make sure you're following the licenses for that open source code so you don't run into any legal headaches. There are a bunch of different SCA tools available. Snag is a popular one, but there are others like White Source and Black Duck. Okay, let's dive into secure code review and threat hunting, two really important parts of a security engineer's job. We're talking about finding potential problems before they become real issues. First up is secure code review. This is basically like doing a pre-flight check on your application's code, looking for vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Then there's threat hunting, which is a more proactive approach. It's all about being a detective and looking for threats that traditional security tools might miss. We use things like automated scanning to spot issues, but also manual reviews and analyzing logs. It's all about finding those hidden dangers. Okay, let's talk about securing your API. Think of API as the doorways to your application, and just like any doorway, they need strong security. We're going to focus on three main areas: authentication and authorization, making sure only authorized users can access things. Then we'll cover input validation, basically checking everything that comes in to make sure it's safe. Rate limiting is super important too, preventing attackers from flooding your system with requests. And finally, always use HTTPS for encrypted communication. It's a good idea to be familiar with the OSP API Security Top 10. It lists common vulnerabilities you need to watch out for. Regularly auditing and even doing penetration testing can help find weaknesses before an attacker does. Remember, security is ongoing. It's not a one-time fix. Okay, let's talk about cloud security. As a security engineer, it's really important to know how these big players, Azure and GCP, approach securing things. They all have different strengths and focuses. AWS is the oldest and has a massive range of services. Azure works incredibly well if you're already using Microsoft products, and GCP really shines with its data analytics tools and container security. Okay, let's talk about how security works in the cloud. It's not a solo mission. The shared responsibility model is key to understanding this. Basically, your cloud provider takes care of keeping the lights on and the basic infrastructure secure, things like the physical servers and networks. But you are responsible for everything that lives inside the cloud, your applications, data, how people access it, everything. We've broken down some common areas like compute, storage, and networking to show where those responsibilities fall. Okay, let's talk about securing your cloud with Identity and Access Management, or IAM. Essentially, this slide is all about who can do what within your resources like your databases, servers, and storage buckets. We'll break down the core concepts. An identity refers to who is accessing things, access is what they're allowed to do, and policies are the rules that determine those permissions. There are different ways to create these policies, from detailed JSON configurations to using pre-built managed policies. And remember, always follow the principle of least privilege. Granting only the absolutely necessary access makes your system much more secure. Okay, let's talk about securing your VPC, essentially making it a really strong digital fortress. A VPC is like its own private network inside the cloud provider's system. The first thing you want to do is break things up. Sub-segmentation allows you to isolate different parts of your network, so if one area gets compromised, it doesn't affect everything else. Then you have network access control lists, which are like digital gatekeepers, controlling what traffic can come in and go out. Security groups then act as firewalls around individual instances or servers. And remember to always follow the principle of least privilege when setting up access. Only give people the permissions they absolutely need. Don't forget regular audits and monitoring to spot anything suspicious. Okay, let's talk about firewalls in the cloud. Traditional firewalls are like gatekeepers at the edge of your network, but as applications move to containers and Kubernetes, that approach doesn't really work anymore. Cloud-native firewalls and WAF web application firewalls live inside those applications. They examine every request and response, looking for threats directly where they occur. We'll look at some common options like Cloudflare, AWS services, and even solutions built into service meshes like Istio. Understanding these differences is key to securing your modern cloud architecture. Okay, let's talk about protecting data both when it's sitting quietly in storage and when it's traveling across networks. First, we have encryption at rest, which means locking down your data while it's saved on a hard drive or in a database. Think of it like putting your valuables in a safe. We can do this at the whole drive level, encrypting everything within databases themselves, or even for individual files. Now, when data is moving, say, from your computer to a website, or over a network, we need encryption in transit. This means securing that data as it's being sent. HTTPS which you see with HTTPS at the start of a website address, encrypts web traffic. VPN creates secure tunnels for remote connections, and SSH is a really useful tool for securely connecting to other computers. Remember, strong algorithms, good key management, and regular checks are all essential parts of a solid encryption strategy. Okay, let's talk about cloud monitoring and security logging. Think of it like having a really good surveillance system for your digital world. We use tools like AWS CloudWatch or Azure Monitor to track things like how busy your servers are and what's happening on the network. We set up alerts if something goes off the charts. We know there might be an issue. Then, we funnel all those logs into a SIEM system like Splunk, which sifts through everything to spot suspicious patterns. It's about collecting as much data as possible and turning it into actionable insights so you can quickly catch potential threats and keep your cloud environment secure. Let's talk about compliance. As a security engineer, you'll be dealing with a lot of different frameworks. Think of these standards as blueprints for building secure systems. ISO 27001 is like the overall framework for information security. NIST gives you a structured way to manage risk, and PCI DSS is crucial if you handle credit card details. HIPAA protects healthcare data, and GDPR well. It's all about protecting people's personal information in Europe. Understanding these standards will be key to your role. Okay, let's talk about security auditing. It's a really important part of being a security engineer. Essentially, we're checking up on our systems and processes to see if they're secure. It involves figuring out what could go wrong, what risks we face, then testing how well our defenses are working. We look at things like firewalls, antivirus software, and even the documentation that explains how security policies are supposed to be followed. And don't forget reporting. A good audit report isn't just a list of problems. It needs to clearly outline those issues, explain their importance, and suggest what steps should be taken to fix them all in a way that leaders can understand and act on. Okay, let's talk about SIEM security, information and event management. Think of it like a 24/7 security watchdog for your organization. It pulls information from all sorts of places, your servers, firewalls, even your antivirus software. Then a powerful engine analyzes this data to spot anything unusual or potentially dangerous patterns that might indicate an attack. Finally, the SIEM sends out alerts and generates reports so you know exactly what's happening and can stay on top of things. Okay, let's dive into log management. It's a cornerstone of security work. Basically, we need to collect all the information about what's happening on our systems, like server activity or application errors. We then clean this data up and add context so it's actually useful. Think of it as organizing a huge pile of notes into something meaningful. We use tools like SIEMs, which are essentially central command centers for security events alongside log aggregators to collect everything. And, of course, there's the ELK stack, which is a powerful open source option that's become really popular. Let's talk about data loss prevention, or DLP. Think of it as a digital bodyguard for your company's most valuable information. DLP tools work by constantly scanning things like emails, web browsing, and even files on computers to spot sensitive data, such as customer details or financial records. If they detect something that shouldn't be leaving the organization, say, an employee emailing credit card numbers outside the company, the DLP system can automatically stop it, alert security teams, or take other actions to prevent a breach. There are different types of DLP, like protecting data on computers themselves, monitoring network traffic, and even securing information stored in the cloud. It's all about proactively safeguarding your sensitive data. Let's talk about how training your employees can be one of the best defenses against cyber attacks. Security awareness programs aren't just a nice to have, they're essential. Think of it like this: attackers often target human error, so educating users is key to preventing breaches. We want regular training sessions, maybe every few months, and we should definitely be running phishing simulations to see how people react. It also makes sense to tailor the training to different roles within your organization. Developers might need specific training on secure coding practices, while executives will need guidance on recognizing social engineering tactics. Finally, consistently communicating policy updates and sending reminders is vital. And don't forget to measure the results, track things like how many people click on phishing emails or their scores on quizzes. By monitoring these metrics, you can see if your program is actually making a difference. Okay, let's talk about how we actually find security issues penetration testing. Basically, it's like having a friendly hacker try to break into your systems, but with your permission, of course. We call this ethical hacking, or white hat hacking. It involves using the same tools and techniques as real attackers, just for good. The process is usually broken down into phases. We start by gathering information reconnaissance, then scan for open ports and vulnerabilities, attempt to exploit those weaknesses, and finally, write a report with our findings and how to fix them. Okay, let's talk about vulnerability scanners. These are really important tools for any security engineer. We've got three main players. Nessus is a widely used commercial scanner that's pretty easy to learn with a lot of helpful plugins. Then there's OpenVAS, that's completely free and has a great community behind it, which makes it super powerful. And finally, we have Qualys, which is a cloud-based option that scales really well if you need it for a larger environment. Choosing the best one depends on what your organization needs and what fits your budget. Okay, so let's talk about testing web apps for security. We'll be looking at two really helpful tools, Burp Suite and OWASP-CAP. Burp Suite is like a Swiss Army knife for web security. It lets you intercept traffic, scan for problems, and even manually craft attacks. Think of it as your detective kit. Then there's OWASP-CAP. It's totally free, open source, and does many of the same things as Burp but with a huge community backing it up. It's an excellent choice if you're just starting out. Okay, let's talk about social engineering, a really important area for any security engineer. Basically, it's all about tricking people into doing things they shouldn't, like giving up their passwords or clicking on malicious links. There are lots of different techniques out there. Phishing is probably the most well-known, those emails that look legitimate but try to get you to click a link and enter your details. Then there's spear phishing, which is much more targeted. It's like a personalized attack. You might also hear about phishing or smishing, that's social engineering over the phone or via text message. Pretexting involves building a whole false story to get someone to cooperate, and baiting users offers of something desirable that hides a nasty surprise. It really highlights how important it is to be skeptical and always double-check things. Security isn't just about technology, it's about people too. Let's talk about securing your wireless networks. They're really popular targets for cyber attacks, and it's much more complex than just turning on WP-ATWO or WP-A3. We need to understand common vulnerabilities like old protocols like WEP and WPA/WP-ATWO that are easily cracked. Then there's the threat of rogue access points, basically fake Wi-Fi hotspots trying to trick you into giving up your passwords. Evil twin attacks are a more sophisticated version of this, where attackers create similar-looking networks. And don't forget about deauthentication attacks, which can kick clients off the network. Bluetooth interference can also play a role, and it's important to use strong encryption like WP-A3 with unique passwords and isolate guest networks from your main one. Regularly auditing your wireless security and doing penetration testing is key to staying ahead of potential threats. Security isn't something you just set up once. Okay, let's talk about keeping our remote workers secure. A VPN essentially creates a private tunnel for all their data, making it much harder for attackers to intercept sensitive information. We're looking at protocols like ISEC and IKF12 for establishing that secure connection. You might also hear about SSL/TLS VPN. These use the same security techniques as your web browsing. Now, don't forget this is just one layer of defense. Adding to FA is vital to protect against compromised passwords. And it's important to regularly check our VPN setup and keep everything updated. Okay, let's talk about email security, a critical part of being a security engineer. We're going to focus on SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. They're all designed to stop scammers from pretending to be you when they send emails. SPF is like a guest list for your domain. It tells receiving servers which IP addresses are allowed to send emails for you. Then you can think of it as adding a digital seal to your emails, confirming they haven't been changed along the way. Finally, DMARC builds on both, telling mail servers how to handle suspicious emails, whether to reject them outright or just let you know about problems. Okay, let's talk about securing your domain name system, or DNS. Think of it as the internet's phone book. It translates website names into IP addresses. If someone compromises your DNS, they can redirect users to malicious sites or even disrupt services. The first thing is to control who can ask for copies of your zone data using zone transfers. Limit these requests only to trusted secondary servers. Next up, DNSSEC. This adds a layer of security by digitally signing your zones, so you know the information hasn't been tampered with. Regularly monitor your DNS logs. Look for anything unusual like unauthorized queries or zone transfers. And finally, while not directly related to DNS itself, make sure SPF and DKIM are properly configured on your email servers. They utilize DNS for authentication purposes. Okay, let's talk about insider threats. These aren't always about someone intentionally trying to cause harm. They can be a result of mistakes or compromised account. As a security engineer, it's important to have strategies in place. We look at user behavior, anything out of the ordinary, like accessing data they wouldn't normally see or logging on at odd hours. Data loss prevention tools help us catch sensitive information leaving the company. Controlling who has access to privileged accounts, those with administrative rights, is hugely important. And finally, Uber systems use machine learning to understand what's normal for each user and flag anything that deviates from that pattern. Okay, let's talk about source security, automation, and orchestration. Basically, it's all about making your security team work smarter, not harder. It takes those really tedious, repetitive tasks that analysts spend their time on, like looking for suspicious activity or running the same scans over and over, and automates them. So it also helps you connect all of your different security tools together in one place, so everything talks to each other seamlessly. And finally, it uses threat intelligence to make those automated responses even more effective. It's like building a really powerful, efficient security muscle for your team. Let's talk about endpoint protection platforms, or apps. Think of them as your first line of defense against threats targeting individual computers and servers. We call those endpoints. An EPP doesn't just look for known viruses, it also watches how things are behaving on the device, looking for suspicious patterns that might indicate a problem. They use signatures like fingerprints of known malware, plus behavioral analysis to catch new or unknown attacks. There are lots of great options out there like Microsoft Defender and CrowdStrike. And importantly, EPP work best when they're part of a bigger security picture, alongside other tools that help us see the whole threat landscape. Okay, so let's talk about how we tackle malware. First, we need to understand what an asterisk is, and how it works. We use a couple of main techniques: static analysis, which is like reading the code itself for clues, and dynamic analysis, where we watch it run to see what it does. And of course, behavioral analysis tracks any changes it makes on our system. Now, sandboxing is super important. It's basically creating an isolated space, like a little digital bubble, where we can safely let potentially dangerous software run without risking the rest of our network or devices. We use things like virtual machines and even containers to do this, which offer different levels of protection. It's not a perfect solution, but it's a really valuable part of a security engineer's toolkit. Moving on, we'll delve into threat intelligence. Okay, let's talk about digital forensics. As a security engineer, you'll often find yourself investigating security incidents. Think breaches, malware infections, or suspicious activity. The process starts with preparation. It's super important to establish a clear chain of custody for any evidence you collect and meticulously document every step. Then comes identification, figuring out exactly what happened by looking at alerts, logs, or even reports from users. Once you've identified the incident, containment is key. You need to stop it from spreading further by isolating affected systems and blocking malicious traffic. Next, eradication focuses on getting rid of the problem itself, like removing malware. After that, recovery is about restoring everything back to a secure state. Finally, We analyze what happened. That's where lessons learned comes in, identifying weaknesses and making changes to prevent similar incidents from happening again. Several tools are helpful here, things like EnCase or FTK Imager for analyzing data, and Wireshark to examine network traffic. It's a complex but critical part of being a security engineer. Okay, let's talk about chain of custody. It's basically a detailed record of who touched what evidence and when. Why is this so important? Well, imagine you're presenting digital evidence in court. If someone can't prove that the data hasn't been altered or tampered with, it could seriously undermine your case. It's all about documentation, logging every single interaction with a piece of evidence, keeping it secure, and making sure everyone knows who had control at any given time. Think of it as building a rock-solid trail that proves the integrity of what you're presenting. Okay, let's talk about building your security policies. This is a crucial step. You can't protect anything if you don't have clear guidelines. It starts with defining what you want to achieve and outlining specific rules for everything from how people access systems to protecting sensitive data. We need to consider the risks facing our organization, document these policies clearly, get approval from everyone involved, communicate those policies effectively through training, and then put in place technical and procedural controls that actually enforce them. Finally, it's vital to regularly check if things are being followed and adjust as needed. Security is a constantly moving target. Okay, let's talk about business continuity and disaster recovery planning. As a security engineer, you're not just focused on preventing attacks. You also need to have a plan for when things go wrong. It's all about minimizing downtime and making sure your organization can keep running. We start with risk assessment, figuring out what could potentially disrupt us. Then we set RTO and RPO, which are essentially how quickly we need to get back online and how much data loss is acceptable. Finally, a well-documented BCDR plan, regularly tested and updated, is absolutely essential. Let's talk about how we measure security. It's not just about feeling safe, it's about proving our effectiveness. Security metrics and KPI are crucial for that. They show us the value of what we're doing, help us spot weaknesses, and give us solid information to make smart decisions about our security strategy. We track things like how long it takes to find a problem in TTD and how quickly we fix it in TTR. We also look at how often people fall for phishing scams and how well we're patching up vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. These numbers aren't just data, they're a roadmap to better security. Okay, let's talk about passwords. As a security engineer, you need to make sure people are using strong passwords. We're talking long, complex combinations that aren't easily guessed. It's not enough just to have a password. We also need policies in place, like requiring regular changes and forbidding simple words. And the really important part, multi-factor authentication. This adds another layer of security, so even if someone steals your password, they still won't be able to get in. Finally, remember how passwords are stored. It's crucial that they are securely hashed using modern algorithms. And don't forget ongoing monitoring and audits to catch any potential issues. Okay, let's talk about securing the communications happening on our networks. We'll start with DNSSEC, which is like a digital signature for website addresses that makes sure you're actually talking to the right place and not a fake. Then we have HTTPS, which is basically encryption for websites. Think of it as sending a message in a secure envelope. SSH allows us to remotely manage our network devices securely, protecting everything we send back and forth. And finally, SNMPv3 provides security for how we check on the health of those devices. Okay, let's talk about securing your containers and Kubernetes clusters. It's all about building a strong defense in depth. First off, always scan your container images for vulnerability. Think of it as checking if there are any open doors in your fortress. Next up, role-based access control is crucial. You want to make sure only the right people have access to the right things within the cluster. Then control network traffic using network policies like setting up checkpoints, only allowing necessary connections. Don't forget about secrets. Securely storing passwords and API keys is absolutely vital. Pod security admission helps enforce security at a deeper level by preventing risky configurations. Ultimately, security is an ongoing process. Continuous monitoring and vulnerability management are key to staying ahead of threats. Okay, let's talk about securing your serverless applications. Serverless is fantastic, but it's not without its risks. Because these apps are so distributed and often run in short bursts, we need to be extra careful. There are some specific vulnerabilities that show up, things like injection attacks directly into the functions themselves, or if someone gets their hands on an IAM role with way too much access. Also, API gateways can have security gaps if they're not set up properly. Finally, don't forget about how your serverless apps connect to other services like S3 buckets. Those connections need to be secured as well. The good news is there are strategies we can use, like making sure everything gets checked for malicious input, giving functions only the permissions they absolutely need, and keeping a close eye on things with logging and monitoring. Okay, let's talk about supply chain and third-party risks. These are huge areas for security engineers. Basically, when you rely on other companies to do things for you, like provide software or handle data storage, they can introduce vulnerabilities that you need to be aware of. Think about it, the vendor might have access to your sensitive information, which means if they get hacked, so do you. It expands your attack surface significantly and makes it really tough to keep everything secure consistently. The key is to start with a thorough risk assessment, figure out who's most important, how secure they are, and then make sure your contracts include strong security requirements. You also need to monitor these vendors regularly for anything unusual. It's all about building a layered defense. Okay, let's talk about IoT device security. It's become a huge concern as more and more everyday things are connected to the internet. These devices often have limited processing power and memory, making it tough for them to handle complex security measures. There are some serious challenges involved, like weak passwords and outdated firmware. That's why it's so important to harden these devices from the start. We're talking about vulnerabilities like MITM attacks and ransomware, specifically targeting these gadgets, which can lead to data breaches and even compromise entire networks. But don't worry, there are ways we can protect ourselves. Things like secure boot, regular firmware updates, strong authentication, maybe even multi-factor authentication and network segmentation can make a big difference. It's really about taking a layered approach and staying on top of potential threats through scanning and monitoring. Okay, let's talk about how we can make security a real part of our DevOps workflow. It's not just about bolting on extra steps at the end, it's a whole mindset shift. We want to shift left, meaning thinking about security right from the start during design and planning. That means things like threat modeling, figuring out what potential problems we could face before writing any code. Then, automation is key. We need to automatically scan our code for vulnerabilities throughout the entire development process. Think of it as building security into every stage. And speaking of stages, infrastructure as code, using code to define and manage our infrastructure is a really powerful way to ensure that our systems are secure from the ground up. Finally, continuous monitoring is vital. We need to constantly watch for new vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, or signs of an attack. Tools like SAST and DAST can help us find problems early on, while infrastructure as code scanning helps us catch issues in our infrastructure definitions. DevSecOps isn't a separate thing, it's about building security into everything we do. Okay, let's talk about securing your infrastructure as code. With tools like Terraform and CloudFormation, we can automate our deployments, which is awesome. But it also means we need to be extra careful. The biggest thing to remember is that just because you can build something doesn't mean you should. We have to think about security from the start. Things like storing secrets safely, scanning our modules for vulnerabilities, and making sure our infrastructure follows best practices like least privilege access are all really important. And it's not enough just to write good code. We need to automate that process too by integrating security into our CI/CD pipeline. Okay, let's talk about network traffic analysis. Basically, we're watching everything that flows across your network and looking for anything out of the ordinary. Tools like Wireshark are our best friends here. We're looking for things like spikes in bandwidth or connections to unfamiliar addresses. Then there's deep packet inspection, which is like taking a peek inside those packets to see what they actually contain. It can uncover threats that wouldn't be visible with just basic traffic analysis, but it's super important to use DPI responsibly and consider the privacy implications. Okay, let's talk about cyber threat intelligence, or CTI. Think of it as being like a detective for your organization's digital world. It's not just about reacting after something bad happens, it's about finding clues before an attack even starts. CTI involves collecting information from all sorts of places: threat feeds, the dark web, even what people are saying on social media. Then, analysts sift through that data to spot patterns and things that could be a problem. Finally, they share this intelligence with teams like security operations so they can proactively protect the company. Okay, let's talk about red teaming and blue teaming, two critical components of modern cybersecurity. Imagine a chess game. The red team is the attacker trying to break through your defenses, while the blue team is the defender working tirelessly to keep them out. Red teams simulate real-world attacks, using techniques like social engineering or penetration testing to identify weaknesses. Then the blue teams step in, patching those vulnerabilities and constantly improving their security controls. It's a continuous cycle of attack and defense that ultimately makes your organization more secure. Okay, let's talk about handling security incidents, a really important part of being a security engineer. The first step is triage, quickly figuring out what's going on and how serious it is. We use the 5 R's: recognize the incident, research to understand it, respond to contain it, recover from the damage, and reinforce security measures afterward. Then we categorize these incidents by severity: critical, high, medium, or low, which dictates who needs to be involved and how quickly things need to happen. Finally, we have specific escalation triggers, like a complex attack or potential data breach, that mean it's time to bring in the experts. Okay, so let's talk about building a security playbook. Think of it as your team's roadmap for handling security incidents. It all starts with clearly defining what you want to protect and the specific threats you're targeting. Then we break things down into key phases like preparation, how you detect something is happening, how you contain it, and then steps for recovery afterward. It's really important to document each step precisely, outlining who does what and when. You also need to integrate your playbooks with the tools you're already using, so everything works together smoothly. Finally, don't just create a playbook and leave it. Regularly test it through simulations to make sure it actually works and that everyone knows their role. Okay, let's talk about ransomware, a serious threat these days. The good news is there's a lot we can do to protect ourselves. We need to think about this as a layered defense. Preventing attacks in the first place is key, which means strong antivirus and patching our systems regularly. Also, segmenting our networks so that if one area gets hit, it doesn't spread everywhere. Don't forget, email phishing scams are a common entry point. And absolutely crucial, regular backups. Not just copies on the cloud, but offline backups too. If disaster strikes, we need to be able to quickly restore our systems from a clean source. When recovery is needed, it's about acting fast, identifying what's affected, isolating those machines, figuring out how the attack happened, and then restoring everything from our verified backups. It's also important to communicate clearly with everyone involved. Let's talk about keeping your databases secure. It's a really critical part of any system, and we start with access control, giving people only the permissions they absolutely need. Then, encryption is key, protecting data both when it's sitting there and when it's moving around. Don't forget auditing and monitoring, constantly watching for anything unusual. And lastly, stay on top of updates and patches to keep your database software secure from known vulnerabilities. Okay, let's talk about access control, or SACLs. These are basically rules that control who and what can access your network resources. Imagine them as digital bouncers at a club. They decide who gets in based on specific criteria. We'll cover the basics like source IP addresses, destination ports, protocols like TCP or UDP, and crucially, whether we're allowing or denying access. I've included an example rule to illustrate how these lists are structured. It specifically lets traffic from a certain network range connect to port 80 typically used for web servers. Any questions so far? Okay, let's talk about keeping systems secure, specifically patching and how we manage our configurations. Think of patches as fixes for vulnerabilities. They're like plugging holes in a ship to prevent leaks. We need to apply these updates regularly, and tools can really help automate this process. But it's not just about applying patches. Configuration management is all about ensuring everything from servers to databases is set up the same way across all our environment. It's like creating a blueprint for security and making sure everyone follows it consistently. We need to prioritize based on how serious the vulnerability is, always test changes first, and keep really good records of what we've done. Okay, so let's talk about hardening your system, specifically using CIS benchmarks. These benchmarks are like a detailed checklist for security, providing standardized best practices. Think of them as the how-to guide for making sure your operating systems, applications, and even cloud environments are running securely. They ensure consistency across your entire infrastructure, reduce potential attack surfaces by addressing known vulnerabilities, and can even help you meet regulatory compliance standards like PCI DSS or HIPAA. The process involves selecting the right benchmark for what you're securing, prioritizing the most important areas, making those configuration changes based on the recommendations, and then verifying that everything works correctly after implementation. Okay, let's talk about securing mobile apps. We're focusing on the OWASP Mobile Application Security Vulnerability Scoring System (ASS). Think of it as a way to put a number on how risky your app is from a security standpoint. It uses the familiar OWASP Top 10 framework and adapts it specifically for mobile threats. It helps you prioritize what needs fixing. The more dangerous vulnerabilities get higher scores, so you can tackle them first. The system looks at two key things: how likely an attacker is to exploit a weakness and what damage they could cause if they do. We'll cover some common vulnerabilities like insecure data storage, weak authentication, or issues with components being used in the app. Let's talk about making sure our code is secure throughout the entire software delivery process. Traditionally, security often comes at the end, but in CI/CD pipelines, we need to be proactive. Think of it like this: static analysis checks your code for vulnerabilities during development, kind of like a quick scan before building. Dynamic analysis tests your application as if someone's trying to attack it. And software composition analysis helps us find any weaknesses in the third-party libraries our project uses. Finally, we need to make sure our infrastructure, all the servers and networks involved, is also secure through tools that scan our code configurations before they are deployed. Each stage of the pipeline, build, test, and deploy, should have a security check built in at every step. Okay, let's talk about phishing simulation campaigns, a really important tool for any security engineer. Basically, we create fake emails that look like they're coming from someone legitimate, but are actually designed to trick employees into giving up their information. We start by designing realistic scenarios, maybe an email pretending to be from the CEO asking for a password reset, or a request for urgent action about a billing issue. Then we carefully segment our workforce, sending these simulations to different groups based on their roles and how much risk they might actually face. We track everything: how many people open the emails, how many click links, and even if anyone actually tries to submit their credentials. Finally, after the simulation is done, we analyze all the data to see who was vulnerable and where our training or policies need improvement. It's a continuous cycle of testing, learning, and adapting, helping us build a stronger defense against real phishing attacks. Okay, let's talk about documentation, specifically within the world of security engineering. When building a solid security strategy, it's not just about firewalls and antivirus. You absolutely need comprehensive policies and procedures. Think of these as your rulebook for all things security. Policies are high-level statements that outline an organization's overall approach to protecting its assets, like saying all data must be classified. Then you have the actual procedures, which provide detailed step-by-step instructions on **how** to follow those policies, such as exactly what steps to take in case of a security incident. And finally, it's really important to clearly define roles and responsibilities within your security team so everyone knows what they need to do. Strong documentation builds consistency, keeps people accountable, and helps you meet regulatory requirements. Basically, it's the backbone of any effective security program. Okay, so let's talk about getting ready for a compliance audit. It's more than just showing you **a policy. It's all about proactively making sure your security is on point. First, we need to figure out exactly what regulations apply to your organization, things like GDPR or HIPAA. Then, we do a risk assessment to pinpoint where the biggest problems might be. Finally, we review your current documentation. Are your policies up to date and actually being followed? Once you've found those gaps, it's time for remediation. This means prioritizing fixes based on how risky they are, rolling out controls like patching or access restrictions, and making sure everything works as expected through testing. Basically, we're building a solid foundation of security. Okay, let's talk about security research, a really important part of being a security engineer. We're specifically diving into zero-day vulnerabilities, which are essentially unknown weaknesses in systems before anyone even knows they exist. It's like finding a secret door that no one else has discovered yet. The process starts with gathering information, what we call passive reconnaissance, looking at things publicly available to understand the target. Then comes active exploration, where we directly interact to find those vulnerabilities using techniques like fuzzing and testing. Finally, we need to analyze what we found, understanding how serious it is and figuring out potential ways to fix it. And of course, there are tons of tools that help us do all this, from analyzing code to monitoring networks. Okay, let's talk about attending these big security conferences: DEF CON, Black Hat, and RSA. They are seriously important for any aspiring or current security engineer. Why go? Well, you get first-hand exposure to the latest threats, see how researchers are tackling them, and learn about new tools. DEF CON is a wild ride. It's a hacker convention, so expect some chaos. Black Hat is a bit more polished and focused on vendors and the technical deep dives. And RSA is huge for the business side of things, think threat intelligence and cybersecurity strategy. It's a fantastic way to level up your knowledge and build your network. Okay, so this slide is all about preparing you for those security interviews. We're talking specifically about case studies and scenarios. They are designed to see how you think on your feet. You'll likely encounter questions around common vulnerabilities like SQL injection, XSS, phishing, and even DDoS attacks. The most important thing isn't just knowing the vulnerability itself, it's being able to clearly explain how you would find it, what steps you take to fix it, and how serious the impact might be. Practice walking through your thought process. That's a huge part of nailing these interviews. Okay, so this slide is all about how security engineers need to communicate their findings effectively. It's not just enough to find a vulnerability. You have to explain it clearly and concisely to the right people. We're talking about crafting reports that go from technical details to understandable summaries for everyone involved, from leadership who need the big picture to incident response teams who need the specifics to fix things. The key elements are a quick executive summary, detailed technical information, an assessment of how bad it could get, and of course, solid evidence to back up your claims. You'll want to use tools like SIEMs and vulnerability scanners to collect all that data, and even have a template like the JSON example here to keep you organized. Okay, let's talk about documentation and diagrams. These are absolutely vital for any security engineer. Think of it like this. You need to understand how everything is set up before you can effectively protect it. We start with clear policies and procedures that define the rules of engagement, followed by risk assessments to pinpoint potential problems. Then a solid incident response plan ensures we're prepared if something goes wrong. And finally, detailed documentation on how systems are configured helps us track changes and maintain consistency. Now, when it comes to architecture, diagrams really shine. They allow you to visualize the entire system from your network topology down to individual applications. These help identify potential weaknesses and dependencies that might otherwise be missed. Thank you for watching.